perhaps one of the most frequent questions we're getting has to do with the AstraZeneca vaccine. It's been in the news a lot in the past month. People are curious about the age recommendations, the effectiveness against the variants, especially the variants like the B1351 with the pesky E484K mutations, has a more trickier mutation. And people are also concerned about the recent discussions about blood clots. So, Dr. Sharma, can we start with you to talk about the age thing, and then we'll move on to our other panelists for the other two.
The age thing. Yes. So what happened with AstraZeneca when Health Canada looked at it, unlike the other vaccines that we were reviewing, where we really only had clinical trial information, for the AstraZeneca review, we actually had the clinical trial information plus a lot of real world evidence. And so we looked at the clinical trial information and we saw that there were not enough people 65 years of age and older included in the clinical trials. So not that there was a safety issue or there was any reason to think that it didn't work. It's just that we did not have enough information in those groups. So it was like less than 10% in the clinical trials were in that age group. We also knew that in the US, there was a large trial that was going on that had about 20%, in that age group, but we didn't have the results of that at that time. So then what happened is that NACI started looking at that information as well, started to come to the sort of the same conclusion to say, okay, based on the clinical trial information, not enough information 65 years of age and older. We don't think it should be used in that population because of a lack of data. Then the Monday before we make our final authorization decision, Public Health England and data from Scotland comes out, and not just a few anecdotal reports, large public health databases come out with thousands of patients and administration showing that in people that were 65 years of age and older, and especially even older, they had a large percentage of people that were 80 and older because of the way they started doing their vaccinations, and they were showing really good effectiveness in preventing hospitalizations and severe cases in those groups. So looking at that real world evidence combined with the clinical trial information, we said at Health Canada, we think that the benefits outweigh the risks for the use of the vaccine in people 18 years of age and older. Now, NACI had sort of already looked at that data. They looked at some of the real world data that we had, and they said, based on that data, we would say that it would be not to not use it completely, which is how it's sort of being interpreted, but we think that for those age groups, that you're better off if you have an option to use an mRNA vaccine. Now, they thought that recommendation would kind of stick for a little while. Lo and behold, the next week, another set of data from real world evidence comes out. And guess what? It shows the same thing, that it's a pretty good vaccine. So I think in retrospect, if NACI had known that even more data was coming out that quickly, which they did not know, they probably would have held on the recommendation, not said anything about 65 and older. We would not be having this confusion. But it did cause confusion because obviously it's like, okay, you're telling me I should use it in this group. Now they're telling me we shouldn't, and now 2 weeks later you're telling me now it's okay. Well, I don't know. I really don't know. Bottom line is, it's actually, and some people are even thinking it's better in the older age groups than it is in the younger groups. So that's the story on age. As we said, this new evidence is coming out as we speak. And again, the AstraZeneca vaccine was in an unusual position because it was being deployed in the millions around the world. And we were getting a lot of real world evidence that we weren't getting for other vaccines. And research by press release it's a huge challenge in COVID-19, right? So, and again, it's good to have information out there, but this kind of quick press release with no data behind it and hasn't been peer reviewed, and then everybody jumping on it is a really challenging environment to be working in.